Picture this. You are on a perfume website. You know exactly what you want. You find it, you click on it, and you check the price. And then, almost without thinking, you scroll a little further and find the men's version of the same fragrance. Same house. Same size. And the price difference is almost $100. Not a few dollars. Close to 100 for the same collection, from the same brand. You sit with that for a second, then you close the tab. A few days later, you are at the store picking up razors. You grab your usual. Then you reach across and check the men's version. Same brand, same blade count. And it is cheaper. A few dollars this time, not dramatically, but there it is again. Same week, 2 moments, 2 completely different price gaps, 1 pattern. This actually happened to me recently with a perfume brand I love. And it was that second moment in the drugstore aisle that made me stop. Not about the razors, but about how often this happens, how quietly it happens, and how quickly we absorb it and move on because each moment feels too small to make a thing of. My name is Mila, and I'm obsessed with the small moves and hidden nuances that build real wealth, especially for women. Today, we are covering 3 things. First, the visible cost structure most women carry without fully accounting for. Second, the invisible cost layer underneath that, the one that barely gets named, let alone planned for. And third, what to actually do so your finances are not being quietly eroded without you even realizing it. Before I start, I need to state, this is not a video about grievance. This is not a victimhood argument. I do not build financial strategies around grievance, and I would never ask you to either. This is a video about clarity. It is about understanding the real financial landscape you are operating in, so you can plan better, judge yourself less harshly, and build more intentionally. And by the end of this video, I'm also going to share a free resource that helps you map your own female cost structure. Okay, let's get into it. Section 2, the visible pink tax. Now, I want to break this down into 2 layers, because that is exactly what this is. 2 separate cost structures running simultaneously. The first one is visible. You can see it on the shelf, on the price tag, on the receipt. In fact, you've probably heard of it. The second one is invisible. It lives underneath the obvious stuff, it barely gets named, and honestly, in my opinion, it is the more damaging of the 2. We are going to get there, but let's start with what you can already see, which is infamously called the pink tax. What most women are unaware of is the visible pink tax does not start when you become a woman. It starts the moment you are born. Picture a little girl. She needs a backpack for school. Her parents go to the store, pick up the pink one with the butterflies because that is what she loves, and they pay more for it than the boys' version sitting right next to it. Same size, same zips, same function. She does not know that yet, but her financial life has already started at a premium. A study by the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs looked at over 800 products across 35 categories and found that products marketed to women and girls cost an average of 7% more than nearly identical products marketed to men and boys. 7%. Before she has earned a single dollar, she is already being charged more for existing. And it follows her everywhere. Haircuts. And look, I want to be fair here. There is absolutely nothing wrong with paying more for a more complex service. If a cut takes longer, requires more skill, more product, charge accordingly. But that is not always what is happening. A woman who wants a simple trim, same length, same effort as a man's equivalent cut, will often still pay more, simply because of the category she is in. I'm dry cleaning. A women's blouse costs more to press than a men's dress shirt at most cleaners. And then skincare. The female skincare market is one of the most heavily marketed, constantly expanding, premium-priced consumer categories on the planet. New ingredients, new routines, new must-haves every season. And the pressure to participate starts young and never lets up. And then there are menstrual products. This one stops me every time because it is so layered. Tampons and pads are not optional. They are not a lifestyle choice. They are a biological reality. And not only do they cost money every single month for roughly 4 decades, in many states and countries, they are still taxed as luxury items. Luxury? A product a woman cannot choose not to need, classified in the same tax bracket as a yacht or a designer handbag. Estimates put the average woman's annual spend on period-related products and pain management between $500 and $1,000 a year. Now, here is why this entire layer gets underestimated. None of it feels dramatic individually. Each cost is small enough to absorb, normal enough to accept, familiar enough to stop questioning. It gets filed under just the cost of being a woman. But these are not one-time purchases. They recur. And every dollar leaving quietly and regularly is a dollar not building savings and not going into investments. So the real damage is not just in the transaction. It is in what the transaction silently prevented, month after month, year after year. And here's the thing. The visible layer is actually the easier one to name. Most women have at least heard of it. What comes next is the part almost nobody talks about. The invisible cost layer. The one with no price tag. I call it the invisible pink tax, or better yet, like the title of this video, the female cost of living no one talks about. That is where the real weight lives, and that is where we are going next. But first, the reframe that holds this whole video together. The problem is not femininity. The problem is pretending femininity is free. The solution is not to stop being who you are. It is to stop pretending that who you are does not come with a real cost structure, one that deserves to be named, planned for, and taken seriously. Now, let's talk about the invisible pink tax. Section 3, the invisible pink tax. Okay, the visible layer. Shelf pricing, haircuts, menstrual products. Oh, skincare. That is the part people at least have language for. You can point to it. You can show someone the receipt. The invisible layer is different, and this is the part I personally feel most strongly about, because this is the one that does not show up in product pricing studies, and almost never makes it into financial articles. And yet, for a lot of women, this is where the bigger financial drain actually lives. I want to break it down into 5 clear areas. I believe covers most of the areas this cost hits women. And once you see it, you can identify instantly where it shows up in your life. Area 1, the safety tax. This one is so normalized that most women do not even register it as a financial decision anymore. They just call it life. A woman working late takes a cab instead of the subway because it is dark and she does not feel comfortable walking. A woman chooses a gym that is more expensive but closer to home because the cheaper one requires walking through an area that does not feel safe at night. A woman pays for covered parking instead of street parking so she does not have to walk alone to her car after dark. A woman books the slightly more expensive hotel because the cheaper one had reviews that made her uneasy about security. None of these are irrational. All of them cost more money, and all of them are made so quietly and so constantly that they never get counted as a financial pattern, even though that is exactly what they are. Gallup research has consistently found that women are significantly less likely than men to feel safe walking alone at night in their own communities. That feeling has a dollar price. It just never shows up as a line item. And it is not just the daily commute decisions. It shows up in travel too. A woman traveling alone books the direct flight over the cheaper connecting one because a long layover in an unfamiliar airport at midnight does not feel worth the saving. She picks the hotel in the well-reviewed, well-lit part of the city, even when a cheaper option exists 20 minutes away. She pays for the airport transfer instead of figuring out public transport in a city she does not know after dark. Every single one of those is a rational decision. Every single one costs more. And not one of them ever makes it onto a budget as a named line item. Area 2, the professional appearance tax. Now, I want to be careful here because this is not about vanity. I personally love personal style. This is about the cost of being taken seriously. Research on workplace perception has consistently shown that women are held to a higher and more expensive baseline of appearance in professional settings. Women who do not conform to appearance norms face real professional consequences, perceived as less competent, less credible, less promotable. So the makeup, the specific work wardrobe, the hair maintenance, the grooming. For many women, these are not luxury choices. They are professional survival costs. Workplace research has repeatedly shown that women's appearance, grooming, and presentation can shape how they are evaluated, compensated, and advanced. The economist Sylvia Ann Hewlett found that appearance ranked as one of the most significant factors in how executive presence is judged for women. And executive presence is directly tied to career advancement and earnings. The cost of maintaining that presence is real, recurring, and almost never included in the conversation about what it actually costs a woman to build a career. Area 3, the cognitive load tax. This one is less visible, but the research behind it is sharp. Women still disproportionately carry the mental and logistical load of daily life. The scheduling, the planning, the anticipating, the managing, even in households where both partners work full-time. And studies have found that women perform a significantly larger share of what researchers call invisible labor. the mental work of keeping everything running, and that cognitive load has a documented financial consequence. Psychologist Roy Baumeister and others have shown through decades of research that decision fatigue is real. When your mental bandwidth is consistently depleted, the quality of your financial decisions drops. You default to convenient spending, you defer savings decisions, you choose the easier, often more expensive option simply because your brain has already been working harder for longer. And yet people say, why doesn't she just take her finances more seriously? Why does she defer? Why does she disengage? And sometimes the honest answer is not that she does not care. It is that her cognitive tank is already running on empty by the time she gets there. That is not a character flaw. That is a documented human response to sustained mental overload. These are the nuances that make female finance so particular, and why this channel exists so women have the correct awareness. The invisible labor does not just cost time and energy, it quietly costs money too. Area 4, the reproductive tax. And this one, I do not understand why nobody talks about this one, because the cost of navigating reproductive health across a woman's life is not small, it is not occasional, and it does not get the financial conversation it deserves. Start with birth control. Whatever method you use, a monthly prescription, an IUD, an implant, that is a cost that runs for years, sometimes decades, quietly, consistently. Just sitting there in your budget, or more honestly, not sitting in your budget because most women have never formally counted it. Then there is fertility. Women who choose to delay having children, or who face fertility challenges, are looking at costs that can run into the tens of thousands of dollars, often with limited or no insurance coverage. Tens of thousands, out of pocket, for something that is as fundamental as building a family. And then pregnancy itself, prenatal care, maternity clothing, preparation costs, postpartum recovery. And then what happens after? Because the career interruption that follows having a child does not just affect income in that moment. It affects retirement contributions, promotion timelines, long-term earning trajectory. Researchers actually call this the motherhood penalty. Studies have shown that a woman's earnings can drop significantly in the years following the birth of a child in ways that a man's simply do not. The reproductive chapter of a woman's life is one of the most financially consequential things she will ever move through, and it is almost never planned for honestly or completely. Area 5, the longevity tax. This one is the quietest of all and possibly the most consequential. Women on average live 5 to 6 years longer than men, which in itself is a blessing. However, it does come with some realities we must not ignore. Longer life means retirement savings need to stretch further, healthcare costs in later life run higher, and the financial margin a woman builds, or fails to build, during her working years carries more weight simply because she will likely need it for longer. And yet, most standard retirement planning conversations are not built around this reality. The number that feels like enough for a couple is often not enough for the woman who outlives her partner by a decade. And there is another layer to this that rarely gets named. Healthcare costs rise significantly in later life, and women, living longer, face more years of those rising costs. There is also the reality that women are more likely to find themselves in a caregiving role at some point, for a parent, a partner, or both, which can interrupt income and savings during what should be peak earning and investing years. The longevity tax is not just about living longer, it is about what that longer life actually costs to sustain with dignity and security. And therefore, a woman must be more intentional about planning for her longer horizon. Each of these 5 areas is its own invisible cost, none of them dramatic, all of them real, and almost none of them accounted for in the financial advice most women receive, which means the conversation we need to have now is about what this actually costs you, in real numbers, over real time. And then after that, I am going to give you 5 specific moves you can start making immediately. Because once you see the full picture, we are going to build around it. Let's get into the numbers. Section 4, the true cost of living as a female. So now that we have named both layers, I want to convert this into a clean financial argument. Because this is really what this video is about. The true cost of living as a female, not the cost of one product or one service, the full, cumulative, and a compounding cost of moving through the world in a female body. And here is the core truth. Every cost we just walked through, visible or invisible, optional feeling or not, reduces your financial margin. And margin gives you options. Your options live in the gap between what you earn and what leaves, where savings live, where investing begins, where freedom is built. When that gap is consistently compressed by costs you have never properly named or planned for, the downstream effects are real and they compound quietly. And I want you to sit with that for a second before we get to the numbers. Think about the woman who checks her account at the end of the month and cannot quite explain why there is less there than there should be. She is not reckless. She is not careless. She is simply carrying a cost structure that has never been formally counted and measuring herself against a financial standard that was never built around her reality. Here is what that looks like in real numbers. If a woman is carrying an extra $300 to $500 a month in normalized, recurring, female-coded costs she has never formally budgeted for, and that is a conservative estimate across both layers, that is between $36,000 and $60,000 over 10 years. Invested at a modest return, that number changes the shape of a financial life. The pink tax is not just an inconvenience. It is an opportunity cost with a very specific dollar value attached to it. And these costs are not landing on a neutral baseline. They sit inside a financial landscape where women already navigate the gender pay gap, career interruptions from caregiving, and a longer retirement horizon. Less room for error, more ground to cover. This is not a victimhood argument. As I said at the start of this video, I do not build financial strategies around grievance, and I would never ask you to either. What I am saying is that accurate diagnosis leads to better planning. If you have been budgeting for a version of life that does not reflect what your life actually costs, your plan will keep underperforming. Not because you lack discipline, because you are working with the wrong number. Most standard budgeting advice is built as if everyone starts from the same place. Cut subscriptions, automate savings, track your spending. And that advice is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It assumes a neutral financial baseline that simply does not exist for most women, which means a lot of women follow it faithfully, still feel behind, and quietly conclude that the problem must be them. It is not them. It is the incomplete map they were handed. And that is exactly why I created the Female Cost of Living Audit. It is the map most women have never been given. Grab it in the description. It will make everything we are about to cover in the solutions section so much more actionable. Let's talk about what to actually do. Section 5. What to actually do. The 5 moves. Okay, so here is where we shift, because everything we have covered, the visible layer, the invisible layer, the financial weight of all of it, that was the diagnosis. And diagnosis without direction is just anxiety with better vocabulary. So let's talk about what a woman who understands all of this actually does differently. There are 5 specific moves. Let's go through them. The first move is the most important one. Map your real cost structure. Not the budget you think you have, the one you actually live inside. That means sitting down and for the first time categorizing your recurring female-coded costs honestly, visible and invisible together. Your grooming and maintenance costs, your safety-driven spending, your professional appearance costs, your reproductive health expenses, all of it. Not to judge it, not to cut it, just to see it clearly for the first time. That is exactly why I created a free resource for this, the Female Cost of Living Audit. Because most women have never done this exercise. And the moment they do, everything shifts. The link is in the description. Download it, work through it, and I promise you the number you land on will surprise you. In the best possible way. Because clarity is always better than confusion, even when the number is higher than you expected. The second move is learning to distinguish between pressure and preference. This is the question that changes everything. When you are about to spend on something female-coded, a product, a service, a convenience, ask yourself honestly, is this something I genuinely want? Something that brings me real joy or real value? Or is this something I feel I am supposed to do? Supposed to buy? Supposed to maintain because the world expects it of me? And I want to be honest with you here because I do not believe in giving you a perfect world answer to a real-world problem. There is a baseline we all navigate. We live in a world where presentation brings results, on where certain expectations exist in professional and social spaces, and where showing up well genuinely matters. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. There are some realities we work within, and that is okay. But here is what I also believe deeply. Being a woman is a beautiful thing, and there is absolutely a baseline of care, presentation, and self-expression that honors and reflects that femininity. And that baseline is worth every penny. Fund it, own it, enjoy it without guilt. The question is, what sits above that baseline? The products you buy because someone on your timeline has them. The treatments you book because you feel behind if you don't. The spending that is not really about you at all. It is about what you think you are supposed to look like from the outside. That is the layer worth examining, not the joy, not the beauty, not the chosen self-expression. The pressure dressed up as preference. Chosen femininity is a joy. Pressured femininity is a tax. And you get to decide which is which in your own life. The third move is to budget for your reality, not a fantasy baseline. Once you have mapped your real costs and separated preference from pressure, build a budget that actually accounts for what your life costs. Not a generic template, not a plan designed for a neutral financial baseline that was never yours to begin with. A real plan built around your real numbers, with your female cost structure fully visible and fully accounted for. That might mean creating a dedicated personal care category in your budget instead of letting those costs disappear into a vague miscellaneous line. It means your budget finally reflects your actual life, not someone else's. And I want to make this tangible for you. Most budget templates have categories like housing, food, transport, entertainment. That is it. And somewhere in the vague middle of personal care or miscellaneous goes everything we just spent the last 20 minutes naming. Your skincare, your salon visits, your menstrual products, your safety transport, your professional grooming. All of it compressed into one line that is almost always under-budgeted because it was never honestly counted to begin with. And here's the clearest way I can illustrate why this matters. A single man and a single woman. Same job, same salary, same city. On paper, they are financial equals. But she is navigating a cost structure he simply is not. Her baseline expenses, before a single discretionary choice is made, are higher. Not because she is less disciplined. Because the system charges her more for existing in it. Same income, different starting line. What I want you to do instead is build out that category properly. Give it real sublines. Visible female costs, products, hair, beauty, menstrual care. Invisible female costs, safety spending, professional appearance, reproductive health. When those costs have their own named home in your budget, two things happen. First, you stop feeling vaguely guilty every time you spend on them because they are planned for. Second, you can actually see where you are overspending versus where you are spending intentionally. A named cost is a manageable cost. An unnamed cost is just a leak. That is the difference between a budget built for someone else's life and a budget built for yours. The fourth move is to protect your options aggressively. Once you know what your real cost structure is, you can make deliberate decisions about where to reduce, where to substitute, and where to spend fully and intentionally. Maybe you find a safety cost that can be solved more cheaply with a different solution. Maybe you find a pressure-based spending pattern you are ready to release. Maybe you find that certain costs are absolutely worth every dollar, and you simply need to plan for them properly, instead of absorbing them invisibly. A woman who consciously decides to invest in a great work wardrobe is making a deliberate choice. A woman who keeps buying pieces unconsciously because she feels underdressed is leaking money without intention. Same category, completely different relationship with it. The goal is not to spend less on being a woman. The goal is to spend deliberately. And the fifth move, possibly the most powerful, is to stop measuring yourself against an incomplete standard. If you have been working hard, staying thoughtful, doing most things right, and still feeling behind, you are not failing. You are navigating a more expensive version of adulthood than the standard financial script was written for. That is not a character flaw. It is a planning gap, and now you know how to close it. The true cost of living as a woman is real. It is layered. It is often invisible, and for too long it has been either dismissed or carried silently. But it does not have to stay that way. You now have the language for it. You have the framework for it, and you have every tool you need to build around it, honestly, deliberately, and with full self-respect. Remember to grab the audit in the description box. It is totally free and will help you understand your financial reality better. And always remember, luxury is easier when your money is organized. I will see you in the next one, and I love you.